A new chapter is a big moment in Fortnite. Normally followed up right after a huge event, a new chapter feels like a fresh start, with a new map, new weapons, and some new mechanics sprinkled in the mix. And Chapter 7 feels no different. This chapter, more than others, attempts to be a new era of Fortnite, with a huge focus on gunplay and the reworking of old mechanics. But how well are these achieved? It's become a trend at this point that once a season has run its course, I make a video going over everything added. And if this is your first time watching the series, I think you can already tell by the video length that when I say everything, I mean everything. Except for checking Fortnite Wiki to see if I forgot anything. And this tradition has made its way into Chapter 7. So before we get into this, let's set a few things straight. The contents of this season will be covered in the order these events happened. So I'll cover the launch of the season, and then the next update, and then the next update, and so on and so forth to avoid this video becoming a huge mess. Along with that, everything I say in this video will be my opinion. I am by no means good at this game, so that means my opinion can differ from people who actually are good at this game, and that's okay. This video goes over my opinion of the season, and if you disagree with that, that's fine. Everyone has their own opinions, and that's what makes discussions about things fun. Talking about a season would be pretty boring if everyone just agreed with me. And since the start of a new chapter normally has a lot to go over, that means there's not a lot of time for an intro, so let's talk about some Fortnite. The hype for Chapter 7 was pretty unreal. You see what I did there? I mean, how could you blame people? It's a whole new chapter, a whole new era of Fortnite, and we were getting constant teases about what's to come, a lot of which including a strange logo on them that has no significance whatsoever to the Fortnite community. And then, full gameplay of the chapter was just leaked online. You've probably all seen this video which leaked about Chapter 7, since if you didn't know, just like the Simpsons season, content creators were flown out to LA to play Chapter 7 early. And who were the main people invited to this event? YouTubers! More specifically, Fortnite YouTubers. The people who instantly make Fortnite is dying videos the second they don't get 1 million views per upload. And when you have a bunch of people who are desperate for views playing something that only they can play, would you believe it, the whole thing got leaked. Tons of things got leaked ahead of time just because people want to be sneaky and post several things online. Things like the entire battle pass, several weapons, POI names and biomes, new mechanics also got leaked like the self-revive, storm surfing, and the play as boss feature. And even during the last day of Chapter 6, the entire map leaked early. We're on a whole new chapter of Fortnite and I'm already complaining about leaks. We're already off to a great start. Alright, let's talk about something more fun, 0 Hour. Because if you didn't know, Chapter 6 ended in one final event called 0 Hour, where we fought a monster called the Dark Presence to get a 0-point shard and save Oninoshima. After saving Oninoshima from corruption, we've ended up in this new reality. This reality is nothing like the last one. We've gone from a reality based on Japanese mythology to America, with a new movie actively being filmed by the residents of this island. And now we've obtained one of the 0-point shards required to rebuild the 0-point. But it seems like we're not alone this time, as the events of 0 Hour have gained the attention of both the 7 and the last reality, setting the groundwork of what's to come for the rest of this chapter. But who cares about the story, because now we're on the Golden Coast, an entire island based on the west coast of America. What do you mean there's a giant spaceship above us? Who cares? You're in LA, go get drunk or something. The map is separated by 3 main biomes, grass, forest, and desert. The perfect mix of biomes to keep the map basic while not making it completely boring. Other maps like the Chapter 6 map had way too many biomes, while maps like the Chapter 5 map feel like they had too few biomes. So it feels like these 3 are the perfect mix of biomes for the Season 1 map. This map has even fewer locations than other maps, with around 13 locations split among these 3 biomes. The grass biome has a more suburban vibe. The standout location here is easily Battlewood Boulevard, a huge city clearly based on a city in LA. This location is huge, with a lot of buildings, and that also means a lot of loot. Clearly, Battlewood serves as the action-packed location, because it feels like half the matches you play are gonna have to go through Battlewood. There's also a lot of depth to this location. There's these towers you can use to get to the upper part of the location, a giant train rail overlooking the location that provides height above everyone else. And then there's also the lower area of the map full of giant tunnels. The extra layers of this location add a lot of depth to the way you play. Clearly a lot of time went into this because this place is great, I love it. But if you don't like Battlewood, then there's also tons of smaller towns on the left edge of the map, like Riptides based on Venice Beach or Bumpy Bay based on San Francisco. These two locations, despite both being coastal towns right next to each other, feel completely different from each other. Riptides is a completely flat location with a few stores, while the other half is a completely open skate park, because why not? While Bumpy Bay has a lot more homes than Riptides. This place feels a lot more open than Riptides and just has a better vibe to it. But it could just be my Mario Kart 8 bias talking because yeah, this place is just Toad Harbor. Yeah, Bumpy Bay is easily the best place on this map. But if you're really feeling quirky, you can land at Humble Hills, which is a more classy neighborhood atop a hill between these two towns. This place is almost completely made of the new glass from last season that you can actually break. The glass in this location made for some interesting fights, so this place is actually pretty cool. And then there's Sus Studios, inspired by Warner Bros. Studio, and I mean, it's alright. I like all the movie-themed set pieces here, there's a lot of fun things at this location, but this location is just tiny, and it doesn't have enough chests for me to actually want to drop here. While the grass biome has more suburban areas, the desert biome feels like it's more industrialized. Take, for example, Sandy Strip, the main location here, and it's clearly based on, well, do I even need to say what it's based on? You already know what happens when you go down to Vegas. Sandy Strip feels like Battlewood feels a lot more compact. The buildings here are a lot taller than Battlewood and a lot less spread out. Sandy Strip feels like an actual city, while Battlewood feels like a big town, if that makes sense. The buildings of Sandy Strip have a lot of depth to them and are a lot of fun to fight in. I also need to take a second to highlight the gem in the center of the location. This gem is called the Shape and adds a lot of personality to Sandy Strip. I mean, just look at how cute it is. The Shape even reacts to the environment around it by looking at you, looking at enemies, or even reacting to a giant missile heading right towards it. Anyway, Four Fields is a forgettable location, but it's not a bad one either. It's a nice little golf area on the edge of the map that gives off huge Lazy Links vibes. I'm actually kind of sad I didn't land here more. But a place I was always landing was Classified Canyon, because just look at this place. It's Area 51. While it looks like it has no loot, that's just because there's a giant underground bunker you can go to, which contains a lot of loot, and a bunker which contains a gold arc lightning gun and a spaceship with an evil Peely. Classified Canyon also serves as a place for the Fortnite lore for all the nerds. Pretty much all the storyline characters could be found here, and later on, story events would happen here. This place is great. And speaking of alien locations, we also have Painted Palms, which is literally just a better version of Sus Studios in every way. This time, Painted Palms is actively filming an alien movie, meaning there are tons of alien props all over the location. You also have some trailers and warehouses here for loot, and the alien theming makes this place stand out a lot. Finally, there's the forest biome. The locations here have a lot more of a cozier feel, while the standout location here is the only exception to that, and that is Wonkyland, a giant theme park location with actual roller coasters to ride and games to play. This location is full of cool rides and landmarks that make you wonder why a location like this hasn't been made sooner, just like a treehouse location. I wonder why they haven't made any of those yet. Well, would you look at that? Tip Top Terrace is a treehouse location. Tip Top Terrace is such a good location, because it's just a bunch of tree houses made into one big town on the edge of the map. The vertical structure of this location makes for some fun fights, and the abundance of ascenders and launch pads means you never feel like you're at a disadvantage if someone else has high ground. The final location in this biome is Latte Landing, which is similar to Bumpy Bay, but without the slope. There's an open area in the center of this location that serves as the main place for fights, while all the buildings surround this place. Latte Landing is nothing special, but it's pretty neat. The only real central location on this map is Innerloop Labs. Innerloop, I don't know how it's pronounced. This is where we're storing the 0 point shard we got during 0 hour, and I am absolutely sure that nothing will happen to this place whatsoever. It has a pretty similar design to Latte Landing gameplay-wise, with the central area for fights, while the middle is mainly meant for getting loot. The design of this location makes for some pretty fun fights, and with its central location, you will always be here. This location's great. Now, on the visual side of this map, this place is great, but on the gameplay side, this is where the zero build player part of this map comes in, because there are a lot of areas on this map that absolutely suck for zero build. This map has the same issue as Springfield, where I just realized I'm comparing a Fortnite map to Springfield. That is hilarious. There's a lot of tall mountains without a lot of ways for zero build players to get up these mountains. And these mountains are everywhere. Seriously, look at any point of this map and there's most likely a vantage point against you. Latte Landing is on the bottom of a huge mountain. That huge mountain also leads to a huge mountain looking over Wonky Land. Painted Palms has tons of tall mountains, and you even have hot air balloons that allow you to look over the entire map. And there are a shocking amount of mountains that really don't have a lot of ways to climb them, leading to a lot of deaths this season caused by not being able to get height, and I need to talk about this specific rock. This one rock near Classified Canyon was so annoying to deal with. It's a giant rock that has a really good position on the map, allowing for you to shoot anyone in your path. And the only way for other people to get on this rock is by using this one zipline on the side of the rock. This rock gives such a good vantage point over the rest of the map, and thanks to the terrain of this rock, it's very easy to also use this rock as cover. And going back to the one way players can go on this rock, well, do players who want to leave the rock also have the same treatment of using the zipline? No, there's a launch pad on the rock, making it extremely easy for players to either rush people who are low, or leave if they get low. It's hard for the player dealing with people on the rock to fight back, but if the player who's on the rock gets low, then just give them a launch pad so they can get out easily. This isn't helped by the amount of third parties that happen on this map because of this map's size. Okay, I promise I like this map, but nothing's perfect. The amounts of third parties that happen on this map are insane. 1 second, you're struggling to find a player, and then the next one you're fighting off player after player after player. And a lot of the time, it's so easy for these players to run away. And it just gets so frustrating having the same cycle repeat game after game after game. Anyway, look at this cool dock I found. The Golden Coast clearly strives off of its good locations. Each location on this map is based on a different part of the West Coast, which I totally didn't only mention for 2 locations. But man, the Golden Coast is such a vibe. This map has a lot of strong locations and really captures what I imagine the feel of the West Coast is. And these locations, man, they're just so good. Like, we got a Disneyland location. How could I not love this place? Places like Sandy Strip and Battlewood create some great action, while locations like Riptide's Bumpy Bay or even Latte Landing create such a good vibe for this map. Everything about this map is so... What the fuck?
We are gathered here today to mourn the loss of one of our own, the bus driver. No matter what happened, he was always there to drive us to the island through snowstorms and floods and fucking alien invasions. One thing remained the same. And that was our bus driver. And we always made sure to thank him for his work.
Actually, I didn't.
Apart from some of us. The losers. Anyway. Fucking hell. The bus driver always brought us to our island. So while he may be gone, we will never forget the Fortnite bus driver. Ah!
I'm fucking back! Alright, a new chapter of course means new mechanics, so let's rapid fire these because we have a lot of mechanics to go over. The bus driver is gone, and now we surf to the island. Honestly, this is a pretty cool mechanic. I mean, no matter how you feel about this mechanic, you have to admit that surfing onto the island can be pretty cool. The only problem is that you don't really get to pick where you end up. The area you surf in is completely random, meaning you have no clue where you'll end up. However, this does have the plus of locations that may have been forgotten due to being on the edge of the map now getting a lot of action. And you know what? For a new chapter, this new way of landing does make the games feel fresh. So explain to me why they brought back the battle bus not even a week later. Having the battle bus back just ruined any excitement for surfing, because yeah, surfing's cool, but objectively the battle bus is just better since you can pick where you want to land. This also destroyed all the talks and jokes about the battle bus being removed. Since the battle bus was gone, this made a lot of people talk about Fortnite, and they could have used that hype later and made a big deal about the return of the bus driver halfway through the season. But instead, the bus driver just came back less than a week later into the season and nobody cared about surfing anymore. Anyway, moving on, playing as bosses is Chapter 7's new take on medallions. If you don't remember medallions, they were pretty overpowered. But Chapter 7 fixes this by not making bosses overpowered. The bosses give you an extra 50 health and gives you an ability that summons 2 guards and gives you either 0-point dashes, shield regen, or low gravity depending on the boss. But now these perks take up an inventory slot, make you bigger, and show your exact location and health to everyone on the map. The new bosses are pretty much just medallions but with actual risk, so they aren't just a free win like in past seasons. While most people thought they were useless, I mean, I don't know, I thought they were alright. At the end of the day, you have a lot of nerfs, but 50 extra health and unlimited abilities is still a pretty big buff. It's just that now you actually have to sacrifice something to get these abilities, and these abilities don't function as free win machines. But also, what is this animation to use the boss ability? I've died several times just because I was stuck in an animation and couldn't do anything, claiming the boss takes so long that you're basically a free kill. Is this why people were saying you were a free kill? Because of this animation? Yeah, other than that, bosses are fine, I don't really mind them. Downed players now have a stamina bar and the ability to sprint and do a little roll in an attempt to reposition. They also gave downed players physics with some new animations to go with it. Yeah, this is funny enough, I like it. Speaking of which, they added a lot of new things that downed players can do to get back in a fight. For example, you can drive reboot vans now. Why was this just accepted by people? This is hilarious. The reboot vans have 3,000 health and are great for off-road, but the main feature of these vans is that knocked players can enter the back to instantly revive themselves. Why did I say instantly? It takes like 8 seconds. Anyway, most of the time these reboot vans won't be useful, but if you can find a good 8 seconds to revive yourselves, these things can give you a second chance when you're in a pinch. Or if you use the drivable reboot vans, you can just book it while another player in the back is reviving. The reboot vans provided some cover as well, meaning the only way you can get shot is from the back of the van. But if you are exposed, well, there's not a lot you can do about it. Goodbye. The same thing really applies to self-revives. As it says in the name, this allows you to revive yourself. Now, a lot of people hate self-revives for being an item that rarely actually helps you. Most of the time, if you use the self-revive, you're still gonna end up dead. But like, yeah. What did you expect the self-revive to be? If you're in a close quarters fight, of course you're not going to be able to use the self-revive, but at range, you're almost always able to pull one off. If you know you're about to be killed, you can create a plan around trying to create distance and use a self-revive. This item is not a second chance in a fight or a get-out-of-jail-free card, but instead, this is a second chance in the game as a whole. Not to mention, this thing doesn't even take up an inventory slot, so there's no reason not to take it. A lot of people were trying to instantly use this item without any strategy, instead of trying to use this item as a chance to reposition, which is probably why everyone hated this item. But I don't know, I thought it was pretty good. Rift anomalies are weird. They have a chance of spawning after each storm closes, and they have a random effect which can be rift spawning, supply drop spawning, or you go invisible when you crouch. While rift anomalies are a cool concept, they pretty much just feel irrelevant in actual gameplay, cause like, cool, more rifts spawned. Let me just travel 200 meters to the nearest rift to go use one. I feel like once this mechanic is fleshed out over the course of the chapter, then they can actually make some cool rift anomalies. But right now, these things just sorta suck. Also, I already brushed up on it, but there's these little hot air balloons scattered across the map. And yeah, these things are pretty cool. They're pretty much just the train, but without a mythic weapon. You're in the air now, and you can be shot out of one. These things are also the only way to get clingers and dynamite, which I'm not gonna review these items because I just don't really care. Gold also got reworked, and this is just how gold always should have been. Gold used to carry over across matches, meaning if you ended a game with 4,000 gold, you would be able to use that next game. And this became a huge issue during seasons like Lawless, where black markets started selling guns for gold. And since you can start a match with the same amount of gold you had as the match before, what's stopping you from landing at a place, buying your AR, shotgun, some heals, and mobility in the first 2 minutes of a match? But now gold resets every match, giving you an incentive to go and grind some gold to get better loot, and spend gold since you'll lose it anyway next match. And if you don't have gold for something, well then gold is a lot more common now, meaning you can actually work to grind gold to buy the items you want. Yeah, this is just how gold always should have been. This is great. The HUD got redesigned this chapter, and it looks a lot better. The HUD just has a lot more life and color to it now. It feels like something straight out of Chapter 2. I saw a shocking amount of people complaining and finding ways to revert this change, but I think some of those people are the same people who want an old movement back, so I think someone should check up on them. And the last new mechanic is that you can now aim down sights while in the air and while reloading. Sure, whatever. I'm sure comp players will get more use out of this than I will, but at the end of the day, aiming down sights in the air doesn't really matter if you don't have a good loot pool. Oh yeah, how good is the loot pool this season? Of course, every chapter needs to have a new loot pool, but this time around the loot pool consists of both old and new weapons. The weapons that returned also have the strange theme of all except for one being from Chapter 5. That's fine, because Chapter Chapter 5 had some pretty solid weapons, and now they're reworked to be hit scan to fit with the rest of the loot pool. Chapter 5 Defender would be proud. What do you mean he rebranded to just Defender now? The Enforcer AR is actually good this season. It's crazy how they somehow made one of the worst guns in Chapter 5 into a pretty decent assault rifle. Doesn't matter anyway, since we have the Deadeye. The Deadeye assault rifle. Alright, fine, let's get it over with. The Deadeye Assault Rifle is a scoped, automatic assault rifle that has a scope and functions the exact same as the Hollow Twister from last chapter, but with a different scope. However, this gun is a whole lot more annoying than the Hollow Twister. I don't think I need to explain the Deadeye or the concept of a red dot assault rifle. You've probably seen like everyone else complain about this thing. So let's go into the specifics of why this specific assault rifle is so annoying compared to the rest. I've seen a lot of different people go over the Deadeye and why it's so annoying, but something I noticed was the role these weapons play in their loot pool. Take Chapter 4 for example. It had the Red-Eye AR, a weapon that served as the accurate ranged assault rifle for the season, and the other assault rifle, the standard assault rifle, was meant to be used at closer ranges. And the same thing applies in Chapter 6 with the Hollow Twister versus the Fury. One is clearly meant to be used at range, and the other one is clearly meant to be used at closer distances. But now in Chapter 7, we have the Deadeye AR versus the Enforcer AR, and both of these are ranged weapons. The only difference is that this one has a scope, and a faster fire rate and a higher DPS, and this one doesn't. So why would you take the Enforcer over the Deadeye? Both of these weapons are meant to be used at range, but when you have two ranged assault rifles, why would you ever take the one without a scope? With the current stats of both weapons, wouldn't it make a lot more sense for the Enforcer to be the one with the scope, since it has a slower fire rate and requires more accuracy to do high damage? But no, instead we have two ranged assault rifles, and one of them is clearly better than the other, leading to an annoying assault rifle meta dominated by the Deadeye. Well, I mean, there is another assault rifle this season, and that's the Hollow Rush SMG. This SMG has a hollow scope, pretty much just making it an assault rifle. And would you believe it, it doesn't compete with the Deadeye. Okay, to be fair, the Hollow Rush is a fun item to use at close to mid-range, which is pretty much how an SMG works. But at mid to long range, yeah, just use the Deadeye. But if you prefer a more traditional SMG, then the dual micro SMGs from Chapter 5 have made a comeback. And man, these things are pretty good. They never really stood a chance in Absolute Doom, so I'm happy to see them make a comeback. Speaking of close-ranged weapons, we have shotguns. Yeah, the shotguns this season are pretty good. The Iron Pump is the 8th billionth pump shotgun, and I cannot tell you the difference between this one and the last pump we had. Or the pump before that. Like Epic, you don't need to make a new pump every chapter if you're not gonna change anything. You can always just use the basic pump, and I promise you, people would not care that much. And if you're gonna do another pump, can you at least do something cool like the twin hammer shotguns? Because these things are the new auto shotgun, but now they're just two slower firing shotguns. It doesn't change how they work at all, it's still just an auto shotgun, but it feels so much cooler. Man, these things are just fun to use, that's all I have to say about them. Use the twin hammers. But if you want another gun that feels good, well, let me introduce you to the Vengeful Sniper Rifle. If you remember the Reaper Sniper from Chapter 5, well, it's just the Reaper, but it does less damage and you can't mod it. But man, it felt so good to hit shots with this thing. I honestly don't mind a sniper that doesn't one-shot headshot like this. It just means you have to be a bit more strategic and finish players off with another item. You can still get work done with this thing, but it takes some more effort to use, and once again, this thing just feels good to use. And then there's the Tactical Pistol. Man, I have waited for this item to return, and it's finally back in its full glory. Sure, this is just a pistol, but it's great at being a pistol. At mid to close ranges, this thing can shred. And if you pair it with a sniper for long range, this pistol is so much fun to use. And then there's the Arc Lightning Gun. Why? This item is insanely overpowered. You can just hit players without much effort even being required. Just get up close to someone and start spraying, and thanks to the lightning on this weapon, you barely even need to aim. This gun will just beam the other player for you. And even at range, people can still use the arc. It's just great at everything without any real flaws to counter it. The only way to really counter someone with the arc is by having more health than the player without them. And hey, do you remember like 10 minutes ago when I said you got third-partied a lot this season? Do you have any guesses what item was mostly used used for third parties? It seems like ARC players have learned to master this weapon, and the way to master this weapon is by being a rat. Sure, I can take on a 1v1 with a player using an ARC, but try taking on 2 or sometimes even 3 players in a row. So often this season I would finish a fight just to be jumped by another player using the ARC, and since I often don't get a chance to prepare and heal up, I'll lose the fight. And even if I can't find cover to heal up, the arc lightning gun can just shoot around walls. Or just destroy them in an instant. If I have height, the arc lightning gun could shoot up. And if the arc player has height, they can shoot down at me and I have to move. And even at range for some reason, the arc lightning gun still hits players perfectly. There's pretty much no real counter to the arc and no punishment for using the arc. If they added an item like shield breakers to disable the arc, we would be having a much different conversation right now. And there's no real counters to the arc, except for an item that got added 3 weeks before the season ended. Alright, let's calm down and talk about an actually fun new chapter item, the wingsuit. It is a really fun mobility item. It launches you in the air and you just get to fly around like you have a Minecraft Elytra. And it's actually a pretty balanced mobility item, at least when compared to the other mobility item this season. Great, shockwaves are still in the loot pool. You know what? No, I've complained about shockwaves for the past 2 retrospectives, and at this point, why even bother? Shockwaves are gonna stay in the loot pool, it's been in the game for years, so why should I even bother complaining about them? If shockwaves are here to stay, then let's just move on to another item. I'm not complaining about shockwaves again. The Forsaken Val Blade was added as part of the Kill Bill collaboration. It functions like a mix between the Kinetic Blade and the Typhoon Blade. It has 3 charges like the Kinetic Blade and an attack like the Typhoon Blade, which actually does a reasonable amount of damage. In fact, this item was a really fun mobility item to use. See, wacky items can be fun when they're not extremely annoying. Okay, I promise we are almost done with the launch of this season. I just have a few more miscellaneous things to go on in no specific order. There are a lot of secret areas on this map. For example, there's a weight you can lift up in Rip Tides to get a mythic pump, or a ramp you can jump for a mythic enforcer, or you can even try fishing for a mythic pistol if you get lucky. They're nice little Easter eggs to encourage players to drop at places. However, there's also these underground tunnels you can use to quickly travel around the map. And using some method, I never actually figured out how to get it, but you can get this unstable element, which acts as a keycard to a vault with a self-revive. That's pretty neat. The battle pass is fine. I'm surprised I haven't talked about the battle pass yet. It's definitely not the best battle pass, but it's a little bit overhated. The 2 big collabs are Kill Bill and Back to the Future, giving us the Bride and Marty McFly in the battle pass. Now, I just don't really care about either of these IPs. Cat Holloway is a fine skin, but a bit generic looking. Kingston is a buff cat, and I don't remember any of the other skins other than the one with the Nyanja sticker. And obviously, the Dark Voyager Reality Unknown, which is a pretty cool new take on the Dark Voyager. That will definitely not be important for the rest of this chapter whatsoever. Overall, it's a pretty solid pass. That's about all I have to say. Oh yeah, speaking of the battle pass, you can now unlock the skins in whatever order you want to. However, the tier 100 is still the last skin you unlock, which pretty much means I unlocked all the skins I care about first, and then had to unlock the skins I don't care about to finally get the Dark Voyager. They added another new feature to the battle pass, where you can unlock extra styles for playing other game modes. You can unlock styles for Cat Holloway and Blitz, the Karate Guy in Reload, and the Dark Voyager in Battle Royale. Each quest line follows a neat little storyline to learn more about these characters. But I think the most interesting one is the Dark Voyager's quest, which involves you working with him to investigate the Order coming to the island. It's actually a pretty neat little storyline that ends with the Dark Voyager betraying you in Interloop Labs, which actually foreshadows a change that we'll get to in like 5 minutes? But yeah, I really like these mini storylines. They're a nice chance to learn about the other characters in the Battle Pass. I hope Epic does more of these in the future. Okay, final thing for the launch of this season. We got a lot of new collabs this season. Like, sure, the season is movie themed, but this seems a bit overkill. Like, we got collabs this season from Kim Kardashian, Lego Ninjago, and Danny Phantom. But it just seems like too many collabs. We got so many collabs that it felt like it undermined a collab getting into Fortnite. A collab used to feel like a huge deal, but now it just feels like if the community goes a week without a new IP, then Fortnite is dead. Collabs feel a lot less special when we get a new collab pretty much every week, if that makes sense. It could also be because these collabs are normally just a few skins skins entering the item shop and leaving a week later. I've said this in a previous retrospective, but I don't like it when collabs come to Fortnite and don't add anything gameplay-wise, just a skin or two in the item shop, and then leave a week later. And pretty much every collab this season followed that exact trope, meaning that pretty much every single collab this season was just boring for me. But I know I'm clearly in the minority here because Fortnite doesn't seem to be slowing down with collabs anytime soon. But yeah, that's about it for the season launch. Overall, really fun launch. But of course, there was a good bit wrong with this season, but this season is also a lot of fun. Overall, for the start of a new chapter, this is a pretty good first impression. So let's see whether or not they can carry this momentum into the first update of this season. The first update to Chapter 7 launched on December 11th, adding LEGO Ninjago, a new OG season, but of course this is a Battle Royale video. So what was added to Battle Royale? Not a lot actually, this will be pretty quick. Firstly, the Dark Voyager has taken over Innerloop Lab, turning it into Lethal Labs. This location is almost identical to Innerloop Labs, but now it's black and evil. And now the Cube Cradle is also just pointed directly at the 0 Point Shard. And I always found it weird how the Jones NPC is just here and he seems oddly okay with a giant spaceship pointed directly at the 0 Point Shard. But I mean, you do you, I guess. I bet most people don't even remember Innerloop Labs because Lethal Labs remained for the rest of the season and became one of the most important locations to this entire chapter. There's not much to talk about with this location yet, but getting a map change like this only a few weeks into a new chapter is pretty cool. And later on this season, this location would become a lot more interesting. But we're not there yet, so let's just rewind a bit. And final thing for this update, we got 2 new items. Yeah, that's all we got. Pretty small update for Battle Royale content. The Tactical Assault Rifle was added, and I mean, it's alright. It's a weird version of the Chapter 5 Tactical Assault Rifle with a suppressor and nothing else. Nobody really took this gun, but despite that, it really wasn't that bad of a weapon. In close range fights, this gun can be deadly, and if you carry something like the Vengeful Sniper for long range, you have a pretty good loadout. I mean, it's not the strongest assault rifle for actually being an assault rifle, but if you know how to pair it well, you can do pretty good with this. There's also the Sovereign Shotgun, returning from Absolute Doom. Honestly, I forgot this gun was actually pretty good. It's got a really wide spread, but when you aim down, it gets really tight and works more like a Ranger shotgun. And would you believe it? Wow, you can also aim down sights while in the air now, which works really well with this shotgun. Yeah, this and the Aura shotguns have become my 2 favorite shotguns this season, which is pretty much just me saying I don't like the Iron Pump. There was also 1 new Rift anomaly added, which is Gold Rush. It gives you the effect from touching the Piss River in Lawless and also makes it so that everything you harvest gives you gold. And would you believe it? This is actually a useful Rift anomaly, since when you get it, there's most likely going to be structures around you can harvest all over the place. So of course you're going to want to break them to get a bit of extra gold. And you can get a lot of gold from this. You can get up to like 2,000 gold if you break enough things, which is also enough to buy pretty much anything from the vending machines. That's pretty smart. And yeah, that's literally everything added. This was a pretty small update, but that makes a lot of sense since we got another update next week. And yeah, let's just cut to Winterfest. I have nothing else to say about this update. Winterfest began on December 18th and brought pretty much what you come to expect from a Winterfest event. Tons of snow is now covering the map, classic items are unvaulted, some new defaults and a cloak for some reason. I mean, Winterfest is always one of the best times of the year. It would take a lot to possibly mess up Winterfest. Okay, why don't the present stack? This year is the first Winterfest to change the present system, so now you have to log in every day to open the presents, and this really didn't bother me as much as it did other people. Mainly because I have Fortnite Mobile, meaning I actually can log in every day to claim my presents. But apparently, I was the only one able to do this because the community hated this change. And honestly, yeah, this is bad, but this was a bit of an overreaction. Because like, yeah, sure, I feel bad for the people who couldn't get the skin because they were traveling, but also these skins just aren't that good. Like, can you seriously tell me that all the backlash about this was because you couldn't get cheeks? Like seriously, out of all the Winterfest skins, these are the 2 picked for for the cabin. Like, we got so many good collab skins that would have been a good fit. And even without collabs, these are the two most boring original skins you could pick. Alpine Lexa, Chili, and the Winterfest Bandit are all way better skins that we got this year. It just feels like we got the most boring skins. Like, out of everything, these are just boring. I'm honestly surprised with the amount of people complaining about the change. Like, yeah, this is something that shouldn't have been changed, but is it really gonna ruin Christmas for you because you couldn't get cheeks? And because of that, I'm moving on to the gameplay of Winterfest, the most important part. There's a lot of new stuff to go over, so let's get into this. Clausy Lodge is a new location added in the middle of the snow biome. This lodge gives off such Christmas vibes, with a nice cozy cabin, a giant frozen lake outside. This place is really made by its snow, so it would be a shame if they completely removed the snow in the next update. And then there's the Winterfest items. Nothing new was added, but we got pretty much every classic item returning. The Snowball Launcher, Icy Feet, Sneaky Snowman, Blizzard Grenade, and Presents all return and pretty much unchanged. And Slurp Juices are also back. They're a pretty reliable healing item, and oh my god, is that the DeLorean? The DeLorean from Back to the Future was added this update, with cars spawning around the map. Hey, I wonder what happens when you hit 88 miles per hour. The DeLorean from Back to the Future was added this update, with cars spawning around the map. Now, I would say something like questioning what happens when you hit 88 miles per hour, but here's a gun, go do a crime. Hitting 88 miles per hour in the DeLorean lets you go back in time and spawns a chest on top of the car, containing mostly loot from Chapter 1. Neat detail. The loot includes the SCAR, the infantry rifle, the minigun, the compact SMG, the Spaz shotgun, the lever action shotgun, for some reason, the hunting rifle, the drum gun, and finally, the 6-shooter. Yeah, most of these guns are pretty useless, but there are actually a few good weapons in here, like the minigun, the infantry rifle, or my beloved drum gun. I'm seriously convinced that if any season has a drum gun in it, it's a good loot pool. You can tell I like the drum gun. So I'm a big fan of this change. But hey, if you couldn't get your hands on a DeLorean, then the OG loot can also spawn in the Back to the OG Rift anomaly. Back to the OG will spawn chests around the map that'll give blue versions of the OG loot. However, it annoys me that these still use the high tier models in the blue rarity. The assault rifle and compact SMG use the high tier model, while the pump shotgun and hunting rifle somehow just use their low tier models. Pick a lane, Epic! The other Rift anomaly will spawn Winterfest bubbles around the map, and by using a sneaky snowman in them, you can get healed. Yeah, that's nice. And that's about it for Winterfest, but I do still have a few more random things to say in no particular order. Despite only a small portion of the map being covered in snow, the map still has a ton of Christmas decorations. Like, a ton of Christmas decorations. It feels like the most amount of decorations we've got for a Winterfest. You can really tell they went out of their way to add some festive cheer to the map, and they had a lot of fun doing so. I never actually mentioned the new shaped storms until now, but yeah, the storm now has a rare chance of forming a triangle, and now it can also form a snowman, a Christmas tree, or whatever. It's a neat little thing to mix up games, and later on they would add even more storms, making this feature even cooler. The wacky storms are a really fun change of pace, and I really hope they continue doing cool things with this. The New Year's event happened, and I missed it, because I wasn't home. And I really didn't care. Yeah, the New Year's event is the same thing every year with a new coat of paint. It's a cool thing for New Year's, but you're not really missing much if you don't attend it. This year's Winterfest had another strange focus on collabs. While the actual content this Winterfest was lacking, Epic still made sure that a new Christmas skin was entering the item shop almost every day. I know, I said this earlier, but it becomes a lot more apparent here, because I just hate these big collaborations that come to Fortnite just as skins in the shop. Because while this Winterfest had the most collabs this year, it also had the least amount of actual new stuff this year. And I mean, just look at the collabs we got. This year we got collaborations with Snow Miko, Santa Sabrina, Batman Beyond, iShowSpeed, SpongeBob, Baby Groot, Bleach, and none of them added any actual content for me to play. Well, that's not entirely true because Blitz and Delulu got 2 mythics randomly. Who cares about Blitz and Delulu? Just add them to BR. And that also makes it so that out of the 8 IPs added to Winterfest, 1 of them got actual content to the game. Fun. And finally, we have the Lieutenant Winter Power Hour, which did something. The changes on this Power Hour were barely even noticeable. And yeah, I'll actually save my thoughts for Power Hours until next update. You'll understand why in a bit for now, but yeah, this power hour kind of sucked. And that pretty much concludes Winterfest 2025. But of course, there was a little glimmer at the end of this tunnel. With Winterfest ending, that also means that winter break is ending for students. Which means it's time to get back on that school bus, because we're about to have ourselves a time!
Oh my god! They killed Kenny!
A new year means a new Fortnite update, and the first update of the year didn't disappoint, bringing South Park to the island in the Born in Chaos event. Finally, a collab that actually brought some content to the game. This update brought a full South Park takeover, even including an event pass. By completing quests, you could unlock cred to get rewards like the cred backbling, a cheesy poof rocket emote, or even Terrence and Philip as pickaxes. And wait, where's the skin? Every event pass before this has had a set of premium rewards to unlock a skin. So why is there no skin in this one? Well, it's time to put on our tinfoil hats and theorize a bit, because looking at the Cartman skin, he has a lot of effort put into him. Almost as much effort as a Battle Pass skin would. And in fact, if you go into the files for the Cartman skin, he has the same suffix as any other Battle Pass skin. So it wouldn't be crazy to assume that Cartman was meant to be the secret skin this season before getting put into the shop. And let me just say, if that is the case, then that is just stupid. Why would you not put Cartman in the event pass? Every other South Park skin will be in the shop, and now both Battle Pass and event pass skins can be sold in the shop. So once the South Park collaboration was over, you could just put Cartman in the shop. What's the point of not putting him in the Battle Pass, other than being able to sell him for 1500 V-Bucks instead of 1000 V-Bucks in the event pass? But the worst part about all of this is that now I can't go to Cartman Land since I couldn't get Cartman. I see what you're doing, Epic. This update took away all the snow from Winterfest, but for some reason kept Clausy Lodge without the snow, and then added a bit of snow next to it around Cartman Land. Oh yeah, Cartman Land. A new Cartman Land takeover of Wonky Land, with tons of rides, games, and even Trump jokes apparently. And the best part is that you can't come!
It's the greatest amusement park in the Colorado area, and nobody can go, especially Stan and Kyle! Ha ha ha!
Cartman Land actually changed up the layouts a lot when compared to Wonky Land. The rides locations were changed around a good bit, and new areas were added like the cardboard fronts or a giant river full of piss. I don't think I want to go to Cartman Land anymore. Let's talk about something else. Of course, a new South Park event means South Park items, and we got tons of new South Park items, as long as you can't count higher than 3. Cheesy Poofs work like a reskinned Med Mist. You get 300 Cheesy Poofs, and you can eat them to heal 10 ticks at a time, just like a Chug Jug, but only for white health. Or, you could throw these Cheesy Poofs at other players to heal your teammates or damage enemies for a whopping 10 damage. It's a pretty solid healing item. Some could even say that I love Cheesy Poofs. The Kenny respawn token is found from the Care Package Rift Anomaly, and this is just a better version of self-revives. The respawn token will instantly respawn you, but take you down to 100 health and only give you one random blue item. I like how the item differentiates itself from the self-revive. Both items feel different enough that you have a reason to actually take one over the other. I said earlier that the self-revive was an item best used at a second chance in the game, but with the Kenny token, you could just drop back on a player and try to have a second chance to kill them. It doesn't mean it's gonna work, but you have a second chance. The final new South Park item is tied to a Rift Anomaly, and that is the Stick of Truth. The Stick of Truth is a Rift Anomaly that's about as common as the Isle of Doom at launch, if you know how that was. Once you get the Rift Anomaly, it's a race to see who can get the stick, because this stick lets you pick where the game ends. Wherever you use the Stick of Truth is now where the game will end, and you now have 3 minutes for the storm to close to this area, leaving everyone in a compact place. In zero builds, oh my god, this thing is overpowered. Look, I love the fun idea with it, but it is so easy for someone to put it high up on a mountain or in the middle of the ocean. And yeah, when used correctly, this item can lead to some interesting fights in zero build, but it also leads to some really one-sided fights. On one hand, this thing is overpowered and should be a game ruiner, but it's so rare that it also just turned into a fun little thing to spice up games. It was really strong, but like, come on, we've had things like the Armor of Doom. I think we can handle a stick in the game. I really like having fun ways to change up the pacing of a match. At the end of the day, once the stick is placed, you don't really have a huge advantage over everyone else. You don't have a billion health, you don't have an overpowered laser. You're just an average player that knows where the zone is. This causes endgames to be one big fight as everyone tries to survive an actively rapid shrinking zone. Or someone uses it at that one mountain near Wonky Land and they win the game. Okay, did South Park add anything else to the game? Oh yeah, Quint! After all these years, you can finally play Fortnite with 5 players. As long as you've never touched Ballistic. Or Blitz. But those modes suck, so let this be the real first taste of 5-player Fortnite. And I barely played it. Look, as someone who has played modes like Ballistic or even Fall Guys Crown Jam, I don't want to put my faith in random teammates, and it can be pretty hard to get 5 real, actual players to play Fortnite. But from the few games of Quince I was able to play, it was actually a pretty good time. It's just like, you know, not a lot of people were asking for 5-player Fortnite. This mode was an LTM, and it's probably for the best. Okay, there are also a few changes that aren't specific to South Park. For example, we got 2 new items added this update. So let's start off with the Flex SMG. It's a pretty solid SMG that shoots for lots of low damage shots really fast. However, when you aim down sights, this thing is now just an assault rifle, shooting slower shots that do more damage. This item wasn't too good at launch, but then they buffed it and oh, this thing became good. The second item was the Stealth Splash. It was pretty much the goo from Classified Canyon, but as an item. This item was actually surprisingly useful. Just like the Flex SMG, it got buffed a ton, and with the green tint that this thing gives you, you can actually blend in with the grass around you. And the Stealth Splash lasts for a very long time. And unlike other items, it doesn't force you to do something to get the invincibility. I said invincibility, oh my god. You just get a full minute of stealth with no downsides. Literally, no downsides. I know, this item doesn't have a lot of uses, and it's not for everyone. But I mean, I don't know, I thought the stealth splashes were neat. Alright, let's address the elephant in the room. A few hours after the South Park update, Fortnite released a balance change. At first, this seemed like some normal balance change stuff. But among this list is the removal of shockwave grenades and their replacement with Crash Pad Juniors. It finally happened. I can't believe it, but it finally happened! After all these years of rats running with shockwaves, 2 whole retrospectives being plagued by these things, shockwaves are finally gone! I think by now, you probably know how much shockwaves have frustrated me. Now, after all these years, shockwaves are finally gone, and I cannot be more happier. Without shockwaves, a lot of my fights this season actually felt a lot more fair. Well, as fair as they can be in a season with the arc lightning gun. A lot of people will say that the shockwave removal causes a mobility drought this season, but no. Mobility felt almost the same this season. The only difference was that when a player ran away, it felt a lot more like it was on me for actually letting the player get away. Trust me, there are still a lot of players that try to run away from fights. But now, it takes a lot more creativity to get away from a fight. And when a player does something to get away, it actually feels like there's something I could have done differently to stop the player from getting away. But apparently, a lot of people disagreed with me, because the removal of this one item caused an outrage in the Fortnite community. And apparently, instead of people providing actual reasons why shockwaves should stay in the game, people decided to blame NickA30. So basically, NickA30 put out a post on Twitter complaining about shockwaves a few months before, and according to Twitter, this clearly means that shockwaves are removed because of Nick, and Epic Games only listens to content creators and does not care about the general public. Look, clearly this wasn't on Nick. A lot of people also came out around the time to discuss their hate for shockwaves, and when an employee of Epic Games comes out to say that it wasn't because of Nick, that probably means it wasn't because of Nick. And even if somehow this was all because of Nick, then people shouldn't be harassing someone over the removal of a Fortnite item. But man, this whole controversy was stupid. Mainly because shockwaves are finally gone. Why are people mad? Crash pads are an item that function almost the exact same way as shockwaves. It's just that a lot of people didn't want to actually learn how to use this item, because it's not shockwaves. But if you actually give crash pads a chance, they're almost as powerful as shockwaves. And when they finally got their spawn rate buffed, it really wasn't a big switch from shockwaves to crash pads. You know what, I'm done talking about this. This is a stupid discussion. I've made a video on this. I'm done. We're moving on. They killed off Delulu. With the South Park update, Delulu came back once again, but this time for its final weekend. Man, this is the saddest news ever for 14-year-old edgelords. Going back to the start of Delulu's lifespan, this mode was one of the best things ever. Everyone was on it, just felt like everyone was trying to have a good time. That first weekend of Delulu is one of the best memories I'll ever have with this game. And that's mainly because ever since this mode got extended past its 2-week run, it's been so much worse. During the remainder of Chapter 6 Season 4, it was pretty good, but then something about the Simpsons season came around, and everyone in Delulu just decided to become a rat. So many games you would either just die off spawn by a rat who says nothing, or you die early in the game to a rat who calls you a racial slur. The community is what made Delulu so great, but now that great community is gone, and you're playing a game with the average member of the Fortnite community. Epic tried to do things to get people back to Delulu, but nothing really stuck. And when all the people who made Delulu fun are gone, all you're left with is a mode you can go to if you want to learn some new ethnic slurs. I guess some things just weren't meant to last. Anyway, the super styles were finally unlockable this update, making it the first time I actually remember to talk about super styles in a retrospective. I don't care that much. Man, is that really all I have to say about them? Yeah, the super styles are neat. I just don't care in the slightest. Alright, final thing, we had yet another stupid Power Hour event, but I'm going to save my thoughts until the next update, which we can go ahead and cut to. But things about this island are starting to look off. The Dark Voyager is actively working to rebuild the 0 point, and while this is going on, somebody is snooping around, trying to stop the Dark Voyager, and trying to bring a return to order in this island. Yeah, pretty much nothing was added this update. No new locations, no new items, not even a single unvault. So, yeah, let's just go over the quick bit of content. There is in, like, no particular order. Alright, so let's talk about the story. If you've been paying attention, you would know that the Order returned to investigate the 0 point shards after the events of 0 Hour. The Order has kind of just been investigating things in the background and then leaving for a few weeks until we get more audio logs. Well, we now have more audio logs, revealing that the Order is now trapped under Lethal Labs. There was a cool little quest line with some audio logs to do, but also, Jones, you are still at Lethal Labs and you are doing nothing. We also have a loading screen that shows us that the Order was freed by Hope and Jones. This is a really cool loading screen to tell the events of the story. It's a shame the loading screen never actually got released, so a perfectly good loading screen just went to waste. Also, over the course of the season, the Dark Voyager has slowly been doing stuff. He appeared at Lethal Labs and then rifted away a few weeks later. The reason I'm saying this is because we had a mini update where the Dark Voyager is back now. And as this is going on, the Dark Voyager is constantly moving around the map, meaning we can kind of piece together his goals. The Dark Voyager works for the Last Reality, and his goal is to rebuild the 0 point. And now, piece by piece, the 0 point is being rebuilt. And Jones has actually moved to Classified Canyon. And that's about the point we're at in the story. Yeah, the stuff going on with the Dark Voyager is actually a pretty interesting storyline. The Dark Voyager is actually being set up as a good character, would you believe it? When Fortnite actually tries to write a good story, they do a good job at it. Alright, let's talk about Power Hours. Last update we had the Professor Chaos Power Hour, and this update we had both the Kenny Power Hour and the Cartman Power Hour, and both of them did nothing. All they did was make it so that the Stick of Truth spawned every match and there were now more Rift anomalies. I just can't be bothered to attend these things because they do nothing. Like, cool, more Sticks of Truths. that doesn't change how the Stick of Truth works. I could still queue into a normal game and have it play out almost the exact same as a Power Hour game. So why do I need to care about Power Hours? Like, if this event is going to last for an hour, at least make it one memorable hour. Unvault some powerful items, or change how the stick works. If we're going to make this an hour, make it the best hour it can be. Alright, hear me out. Since this event is themed around Professor Chaos, how about you add back some powerful boss items? Add back items like the Nitro Fist or the Typhoon Blade. Add something to actually make this event memorable. And if people don't like it and think this gameplay sucks, then it'll be gone in an hour, so who cares? But as of right now, these events are just boring, and I didn't even record any footage of them because this is just normal Battle Royale footage. What is there to note? And of course, as I'm scripting this, Fortnite has announced a Cartman Power Hour, where the only difference is that cheesy poofs are now more powerful. Yeah, if you want to know my thoughts on the Cartman Power Hour or any other Power Hour announced after this script, I just don't care. Unless if there's some big change to Power Hours, I just don't care. Okay, last thing for this update, they added the ability to listen to jam tracks while in a game. Okay, so overall this update was just a nothing burger. There is nothing else to talk about. So now, let's wait for the next update. And now when this new update comes out, it's February, meaning that love is in the air. February 5th brought us the Love and Legends event. For the first time in Fortnite history, we got an entire event dedicated to Valentine's Day. And for some reason, they went all out on this event. This event brought a ton of new content to the game that makes it look like every other update was a complete joke. For example, we got tons of new items added to the loot pool. These new items include the Flowberry Mist Grenade. This item is a reskin of the Med Mist Grenade from Chapter 6, but now it's blue and gives the fizz effect. This item is really good for stealth because while you can kind of see outside of the mist, other players can't. Not to mention, it gives you the fizz effect. And if you can take advantage of the fizz effect, you can actually counter the arc lightning gun, which is something I'll talk about more in depth later, because right now we need to talk about whatever this thing is. The lock-on assault rifle. At first, the idea of a lock-on assault rifle sounds absolutely stupid and completely broken. And would you believe it, this gun is absolutely stupid and completely broken. I'm sure in builds this item is more balanced. Being able to put down cover whenever you want is a pretty easy counter to a lock-on gun. But as I said at the start of this video, I don't play builds. So if building is the counter to an assault rifle, then why would you add it to a mode without building? In zero build, the only way to counter the lock-on is to find cover, which is something that you just can't instantly do. I mean, there are items like bunkers, but I don't want to have to carry an item just to counter another item, and bunkers can still leave you exposed. You can also try to use a mobility item like a wingsuit, but this gun can also just shoot players out of the air, meaning that if you want to reposition, well, I mean, have you ever heard of the game Duck Hunt? It's pretty much just that. And with how wide the range is for this gun, it's almost impossible to reposition if you're in a bad situation. And when one person has to carefully use mobility to try and reposition, while the other player shooting only has to have the other player somewhere in this giant box, yeah, it creates a pretty one-sided fight whenever this gun is used. Now, what about items like the Stealth Splash or the new Mist Grenade? Well, funny story actually. Epic made it so that the lock-on is a counter to stealth items. You can still lock on to players when they're using any form of stealth, and even when the bush was added later into the season, you could still lock on to players through that. So what are zero build players supposed to do against this weapon? The only real thing a player can do is just try to find cover and heal up, which isn't always an option they can do. They could try rushing the player, which is pretty hard to do when you've already been hit several times with a lock-on, and the lock-on player barely has to put any effort in. Just hold the gun in range of the player long enough to fire some burst, and there you go, you've got a free kill. Please, this item has no place in zero builds, never add it again. Moving on from that, we have a ton of unvaults, and I mean a ton of unvaults. So, sure, it's time to rapid fire all of this. The K-pop Demon Hunters items returned, bringing NPCs and 4 items to the loot pool. Now, I've already gone over these items before, but that was 6 months ago, and now I'm a K-pop Demon Hunters fan. And by that, I mean I spent 1,500 V-Bucks on a skin and watched half the movie. So I can officially say that this movie is not for me. Look, I don't know if the ending of the movie is some insane masterpiece, but the first half of the movie was mid. Anyway, we're supposed to be talking about Fortnite here. The Tiger Teleport Mask is a reworked version of the Void Oni Mask, and having this item is a very fun inclusion to the loot pool. Having a portal placed down before you teleport allows for limitless possibilities. Man, this is just such a fun mobility item to use. I sure hope this is the only mobility item added this update. I sure hope so. Zoe's Bubble Shield is a golden version of the Bubble Shield. This shield is golden, and because of that, it plays the lyrics from Golden. This bubble can also heal you for shields, making it a solid healing item with that. It's not enough to convince me to take a shield bubble, but you know what? It's a step in the right direction. Mira's Ramen is also a useful healing item. Yeah, last time I said this thing was a good healing item, and my thoughts have not changed. Except for the fact that a bug this season caused these items to drop in stacks of 1. So it was really hard to get a full stack of ramen. This also applies to the bubble shield, but the Mira Ramen was really hit by this change. The final KBDH item is a Rumi's Sword, a perfect weapon for showing people how it's done. Because, you know, people could say that we run the town, or maybe that the whole world is playing our sound. We could maybe even like turn it up because it's going down, and then like Huntrix could show this how it's done. Yeah, this item is still annoying, I don't like it. We also got some non-KBDH items in the loot pool, including the return of the MK7. Because adding 1 loot pool dominating assault rifle wasn't enough, here's 2 more. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the MK. I mean, it's more balanced than the Deadeye. Yeah, that's not really saying much. We also got the end of the South Park event, replacing the self-revive with the Kenny token and getting rid of Cartman Land. Yeah, it's cool to have the self-revive back. It's worse than the Kenny token, but like, whatever. The Cupid's crossbow was also added to the loot pool, being a funny Valentine's weapon. And okay, let's just cut to the chase. Did anyone actually use Cupid's crossbow? Like, aside from the mythic version from the Power Hour, did you really use Cupid's crossbow? No? Alright, that's what I thought. They also added back the Wings of Icarus, which are a fun item, except for the fact that they were completely broken. And then because of this, they vaulted the Wings of Icarus, and that just never added them back for the rest of the season. That sucked. Later in the Love and Legends event, the bush was added back to the loot pool, replacing grenades. This was added as a reference to the Bad Bunny Super Bowl performance. But of course, as the masculine, conservative man I am, I watched the alternate version, so I have no clue what this is referencing. Yeah, bushes are a fun item. I really enjoyed having these in the loot pool. While it seems like players would not be able to notice the random Chapter 1 bush in the middle of the island, most of the time players did not notice the random Chapter 1 bush in the middle of the island, meaning that memes still win in the Big 26. We also got a couple of balance changes that I don't really care about because the Deadeye AR is still overpowered. And what else was that in this patch? Oh no. Please, no! Shockwaves are back. Hooray! After these items were removed a month ago, they're just back, and they're still just as annoying. What's the point of experimenting with items if you're just gonna add back shockwaves a month later? This one change almost completely ruined my enjoyment of the season. Having a taste of a loot pool without shockwaves, realizing the loot pool is based without them, and then just no, we're back to shockwaves. I do not like that. Shockwaves, they're a no-skill item. They tried to nerf shockwaves by giving them a stack size of 4, but it really only takes 1 or 2 shockwaves to escape a fight. And it's not hard to find more shockwaves to replenish. The only thing this is stopping you from is stopping you from escaping the third party after you've already escaped a fight. Look, I've made my stance on shockwaves, like, really clear at this point. And if you like shockwaves, good for you. I'm glad your somehow favorite item is back in the loot pool. But personally, I can't stand them. And it feels pointless if you're going to remove shockwaves and then just bring them back like nothing happened. Please, at least just try experimenting with other mobility options before you just bring back shockwaves. We have impulses, we have grapplers. Please, try and find that middle ground. But how does this affect the lock-on AR? As I've already said by now, the lock-on AR counters most mobility items this season, meaning you can't just leave yourself open. This changes the way a lot of mobility works this season. The wingsuit is completely useless, and shockwaves now have a counter that costs 750 gold, but still kind of a counter. And this new shift in mobility allowed for a new item to become insanely useful. The Tiger Teleport Mask. This can allow you to completely skip the vulnerability of traveling, but it takes skill to use and you can predict where the player is going to go. If a player tries to use a shockwave to escape a fight, then they can sometimes be beamed by the lock-on AR without needing the aim of an FNCS player. The lock-on AR, for as bad as it is, did actually have the positive effect of forcing you to be more aware when you use mobility. So it's pretty much using a rat item to counter a rat item, but you know what? I'll just take what I can get at this point. So in the rare chance that I have a lock-on, I can sometimes punish a shockwave player. But then they removed the Tiger Teleport Mask 2 weeks later, meaning that shockwaves are still the best mobility option. I just don't think it's fair that all a player has to do to escape a fight is throw down a shockwave, while the comments of my shockwave video have informed me that there actually is a counter to shockwaves. Having the aim of an FNCS player, I hope that people can realize that using a shockwave and having to shoot a shockwave player out of the sky is a huge difference in skill required to do these actions. Look, I wish I had to put in the same amount of effort that shockwave players have to put in to run away. This is not a fair comparison in the slightest, and you know what? I am done complaining about shockwaves. I don't feel like talking about this anymore. Anyway, what all's left for this update? The OG Ice Storm event happened. It's fine, I guess. I mean, I'm not really here to talk about what happened in OG, but yeah, it's the Ice King event. One of the worst events from Chapter 1 is back, and it's still not that good. They also changed the storm, but not in the way of a shape. Well, they did make it a heart shape, but the storm is pink now. And yeah, this pink storm looks beautiful. It really adds another layer to the Valentine's event, creating its own atmosphere. And with the Heart Storm, the best way to see the Heart Storm is to attend Power Hours. And oh, there's more Power Hours. Great. I'm so sick of these Power Hours. We've gotten like 5 of them this season, and none of them really do anything at all. And wait. Why does this event actually look pretty good? Yeah, so Fortnite decided to like actually lock in because these power hours were actually pretty fun. They give everyone a self-revive and a mythic crossbow that actually does enough damage to warrant you taking the crossbow. It does like 100 damage, but if you can headshot, it does 350. Guaranteeing that you kill someone. And then they also made the friendship bubbles from Delulu as a rift anomaly. Friend bubbles from Delulu now spawning around the map and blocking all damage. However, if you can get the amount of players in the team mode you're at +1, you can open a chest in the middle to get loot. And specifically, you can get self-revives in the event where everyone has a self-revive. But I'm sure that finding a third player won't be that hard, right? Ironically, the friend bubble suffers from the same problem that killed its father, Delulu. If you ask a Fortnite player to use half of their brain to actually cooperate, they will try to kill you. The only way that I even managed to open one of these chests was by ganging up on Huggy Wuggy, killing him, scanning his body, in which we did the right thing, letting him escape, just for him to instantly try to come back and kill us. Asking the Fortnite player base to try to be friendly for even a few seconds even if it ends up benefiting them, is an impossible task. And also, I think the weirdest part of Power Hours was that they asked Fortnite players to play the game on Valentine's Day. Come on, Epic, don't you know there are Fortnite players out there who have lives and actual relationships they want to do, and have something better than to play Fortnite on Valentine's Day? Oh, who am I kidding? You know that I played this event anyway. Anyway, moving on from the events of Power Hours, we have some new developments with the Dark Voyager. The Dark Voyager is now on a little pause from collecting the 0 points. And, in fact, it seems like the story is finally going somewhere this update. As with a new quest, we managed to free the Order from their prison, and now we need to wait for further help for the rest of the 7 in the Legends part of the 11 Legends event. That is where the name Legends comes in, because the 7, they're Legends. Try to catch up, and man, I am bad at transitions. The final main update of Chapter 7 Season 1 launched on February 19th. A whole month before the season ends. Yeah, so this season got delayed by 2 weeks, meaning that this season had a pretty long content drought before we actually got to the next update. And while this wasn't the biggest issue for me, this is the Fortnite community, and they really cannot survive 2 weeks without new content. But pushing aside that we have almost nothing to look forward to for the next month, we do have a bit of new content that we can go over. Firstly, normal Flowberry Fizz was added back to the game. I mean, we already had the Flowberry Fizz grenades, but you know, I'll never complain about more Fizz in the loot pool. You know how Fizz works at this point. You get 100 uses that you can chip away at whenever you need to, but you also get low gravity, meaning that you have to balance using this as a healing item and a mobility item. Flowberry Fizz is a great item and I love it. However, Flowberry Fizz can also counter the Arc Lightning Gun. One of the main things that makes the Arc so powerful is that when you use it on the ground, the lightning spreads and hits players nearby, meaning you don't really need to aim this thing. But if you have the Flowberry effect, you can keep jumping around while staying in the air, which makes the Arc Lightning Gun useless at close range. And let me just remind you, at any point, these players could have switched to a shotgun and killed me for free, but since they wanted so badly to rely on the Arc Lightning Gun to give them free kills, it means that I got a free kill because I actually found a counter to the Arc. And man, it feels so good to not have to rant about how annoying the Arc is. Let's move on. We also got new versions of Hot Drops. 2 locations every match will have blue names, and landing there will get you more rare chests. I mean, yeah, it's not crazy, but it's also nice to have. These are about as useful as Hot Drops, since you can get about the same amount of, like, you know, rare and legendary loot. But yeah, these are just a nice little thing to have. The final new thing this update was that they re-added the DeLorean. And now, I'm just wondering why this thing was ever gone. The DeLorean is just great, and I still love it. But I've got to wonder why they added it for a week, and now they're re-adding it for the last month of the season. Why not just keep the DeLorean for the whole season? Like, the DeLorean is still really cool, but like, since it's cool, just keep it for the entire season. Yeah, I'm not hanging on this for long, but it's just strange. The love part of the Love and Legends event also ended, meaning no more Pink Storms, Cupid Crossbow, or the K-pop Demon Hunter items. There were also 2 Power Hours, one that gave everyone the Arc Lightning Gun, gross, and the other that gave everyone the Foundation's MK7 assault rifle. Now this is what I'm talking about, having one of the best weapons of all time come back for a Power Hour, and it actually shakes up the gameplay too. Not only that, but they buffed it, making it so that this thing was insane. This is what Power Hour should be, actually changing the gameplay to make for some fun chaos. This is what Power Hours should have been with the South Park stuff, and should be the standard going forward. This event was so good. This is how you do a Power Hour. However, this event didn't give me 400 cred, so objectively it sucks. Moving on. Let's cut back to the story. We left off with the Order creating a signal for the remaining members of the 7, and not too much longer a red rift would appear out of the sky, with a rocket coming out of the rift. The entrance of this rocket played as a reverse version of the rocket event from Chapter 1 Season 4. I don't even really feel like going through a breakdown of this event, but it was pretty good. But this event ended with the rocket landing landing at Classified Canyon, and the person piloting this rocket is none other than the Visitor. However, there's something off about the Visitor. He's not the same Visitor we saw from 2018, but instead the Visitor we saw back in 2025 with OG Season 4. This new version of the Visitor is almost the same as the one before, except that in his reality, the 7 haven't died yet. Despite this new Visitor, his goals are still the same: stop the Dark Voyager no matter what. The story this season is actually building up to something cool. For the first time in years, it actually feels like there's a reason to pay attention to the story, instead of it just being some neat thing for nerds. There's actual things happening in the story that are happening right in your face, instead of being buried in some character dialogue. And the craziest part is that this is only Season 1. This season is only starting the story and laying the foundation for what's to come in future seasons. Wait. Laying the foundation. Why does something about that sound familiar? Foundation. The final part of Pacific Break. Since the season was delayed by 2 weeks, we could have been done with this video already, but we still have one more section to talk about now. Firstly, Fortnite put out this strange message with a bunch of dates and messages that I don't really understand. The big thing to focus on here is the last message, which has Season 2's launch date with the text Locate Foundation, which means I don't have to talk about this until next season. Alright, you know the drill by now, let's go over gameplay changes and then we'll go over the story. Wild Weeks have returned is a sentence I never thought I would say, but here we are. To keep content for the rest of the season, we got 2 Wild Weeks. Week 1 was themed around adding back OG weapons, so it removed weapons like the Deadeye AR, TAC AR, Sovereign Shotgun, and the Vengeful Sniper, and in their place, tons of old weapons were added back to the loot pool. I've technically already gone over these, but you know what? Since they're in the core loot pool now, let's go over these properly. The Assault Rifle. The basic Assault Rifle. This weapon is pretty much the equivalent of basic toast in the loot pool. Like, sure, it's good, but let's be honest here, it's nobody's favorite. But surprisingly, they did butter up this Assault Rifle a lot, which is pretty much me saying they buffed it a lot to make it an actually good weapon in the current loot pool. This version got a lot of buffs. You can look at the version you could get from the DeLorean and the version you have now, and they are 2 separate weapons. It is insane. This item is really good now. The pump shotgun is in fact a pump shotgun. They changed it so it can one-shot to the head in builds mode, but I don't like the pump shotgun. I will always be more of a TAC guy, and that will never change. The other 3 items we got are a lot more interesting, since they're actually unique. Starting off with the Combat Shotgun replacing the Sovereign Shotgun, and oh, this weapon's good. The range on this weapon not only makes it a good option for close range, but it's also a good option for mid-range. Assuming the other players don't use you-know-who, then this weapon can get the job done. I wish this weapon could serve as more of a counter to you-know-what, but while the combat would normally counter melee items with its long range, the, well, you-know-what also hits at long ranges. This could have been the counter we were all looking for, but you know what, it's just too strong. The hunting rifle was added back, replacing the Vengeful Sniper rifle, and I'm okay with this. It's crazy how this is the 2nd time in a row where the hunting rifle was unvaulted during the last part of a season. But you know, I'll never complain about being able to use the hunting rifle for even longer. They even buffed the hunting rifle so it can now one-shot headshot in any rarity, making for some really satisfying kills. And then there's the other 2 items, balloons and the suppressed SMG. Moving on. There is also one other change that I think I need to talk about. While the Deadeye was finally vaulted, do you guys hear that? It's the sounds of all the Deadeye Assault Rifle fans crying that their favorite weapon is gone. The joke is that nobody liked this thing. Anyway, the MK still stayed in the loot pool, and these weapons got a huge change. They actually have a bullet drop now. The Deadeye and MK do not have as bad bullet drop as a sniper, but you can feel the bullet drop at long ranges. And would you believe it? The reason why these guns are so powerful is because of the scope. So finally, there's an actual trade-off for getting the scope. These can actually compete with hit scan rifles. It's weird how they only added this change at the end of season 1, but you know what? I really like this change and I hope they keep it moving forward. It would suck if next season we got a new hit scan scoped AR, or if next season just didn't have any scoped ARs after this change, but this is a good sign of what's to come. Now if only we could get rid of another item that's been plaguing this season. I almost forgot about the 7 cannon. This item was teased and rumored throughout the entire season, with it continuing to show up in little snippets and things like trailers. It just kept showing up, but it was never added. Well, until now. During a power hour, we got a sneak peek at the 7 cannon, which will be fully added in season 2. I know this weapon is called the 7 cluster cannon, but I don't really care. The good news is that I actually got to use this weapon. And let me just say, if the standards for the weapons next season is this, we are in good hands. The 7 cannon is such a fun item to use. You charge up a beam that once fully charged will fire out a normal explosion followed by a bunch of clingers that launch players back. You know, I'll give this thing a full review when it releases next season, but man, this thing was good. And speaking of things that'll go into effect next season, you know what? Let's just keep this at a problem for next season. Oh hey, would you look at that, the second Wild Week. This Wild Week focuses on vending machines. All the gold you get is now tripled, and vending machines now sell mythic and exotic weapons. The exotics are the clear standout here's. The Hop Rock Dualies, I never used. And the Boom Sniper Rifle is really fun to use. It's just a little bit underwhelming that these are the only 2 exotics we got. I mean, it's better than nothing, but like, come on. And the mythics we got were just the mythics we've had for the entire season. I mean, it's cool that these mythics are returning, but I've used these items for 4 months now. It's not anything crazy to get to use these items more often, especially when I've been using them for the entire season. And with that, that is the last thing added in Pacific Break. Meaning, we are finally done with Chapter 7 Season 1. Thank God. Don't get me wrong, this season was fun, but this season was also very long. So, after everything that's happened, there's still one question left to answer. Was Fortnite Pacific Break good? Yeah, I'd say so. This season will always hold a special place in my heart, but this season is so close to being a perfect season for me that it's just frustrating. Well, most of the things this season I truly did enjoy. There are things about this season that really bring it down. Deadeyes and lock-ons galore, with shockwaves making this season frustrating, and arc lightning guns showing up to add salt to the wound. But a lot of people like to linger on these things when looking back at the season. But most problems I had this season can apply to most other seasons in the game. And I gotta give credit to the devs here. They listened to feedback and actually fixed a lot of the problems this season. When I look back at Pacific Break and everything it had to offer, I see a fresh start for Fortnite, with new mechanics to keep things fresh, a reset on the storyline to keep things interesting, and when I look back at Pacific Break, I mainly see a season that's extremely fun to play, and some people could even call it an almost perfect start to a chapter, which means I'm putting Fortnite Pacific Break at a very high A tier. And with that, the Dark Voyager continues his work, going across realities to find the 0-point shards, building up to one last story moment, where he uses the 0-point shards to create portals to new realities. And as the Dark Voyager teams up with the Ice King to grow his power, we continue working to rebuild the 7 to stand up against them, which leads us to Fortnite Showdown, meaning our journey in Fortnite Pacific Break has finally come to an end.